ese hombre holding up the bottle. Look a little closer, cigar and Moscato. An actor in improv coming from Chicago. Alto, make way for Paul Vato.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Vato, and this is Paul Vato Presents. We have a very special guest today, and his name is Ray Buffer, who's an actor, a voice artist, a voiceover artist, and a singer. Has a beautiful voice. So thank you, folks, for joining us. Thank you, folks, for joining us. We are live on Fireside. If you want to join us here, where you can see the video. If not, this will be uploaded to my regular podcasting platforms, which is pretty much all of them. So, Ray, thank you so much for taking time from your busy weekend and coming to see us. Thanks a lot for being here, Ray.
My pleasure. Thank you for your patience through my technical foibles.
It was nothing. This is a newer platform, so I've had people go like, "Oh my God, I didn't even realize we were going to be on camera." So this is perfect. This was one of the least painful experiences. So thank you for making it pleasant and easy.
Yes, you're welcome. I'm in my light now.
Yeah, wherever you're comfortable, it looks great. The camera adjusts and it looks it looks great. However, whatever makes you comfortable. So welcome, Ray. And what's that?
I'm going to play host to you. How's your day going?
You know what? This is wonderful. Thank you for asking. My day so far, somewhat uneventful, which is always nice because I'm in Las Vegas. So any day that's not too crazy is always good. I've recovered fully from Cinco de Mayo, which is a Mexican high holy day. So, yeah. But nothing too exciting happened. It was kind of low key. I've been trying to not be around a lot of people. But other than that, it's been a great day. It's warming up in Vegas, getting up to the 80s and 90s now.
Oh, yeah. Vegas, when I first moved to California, Vegas was one of those places that I had to visit as a tourist, and I was just shocked, just the stifling 105-degree heat, dry heat. Coming from Florida, I was like, oh my God, I don't know how people tolerate this, how they live, but I guess you get used to it, right? Like anything.
Right, just like anything, because Florida is no slouch when it comes to heat, but it's more humid. I mean, well, it's humid as opposed to Vegas, where I get it. People are like, it's a dry heat. And I'm like, well, an oven is a dry heat, and I don't want to be in there. I mean, it'll hit 120. I've been around when it hit 120. Now I've had people come into, because I had a cigar store inside Binion's Casino for about 10 years and or a little bit longer. And I remember one customer specifically, I was like, oh man, it's a killer out there. It's like 120. And he was like, oh, it's not that bad. I'm like, well, where are you from? He goes, Arizona. I was like, oh, okay. All right. Cause he was like, yeah, it was like 124 when I left Arizona. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So, but it's bad. I remember driving from when I lived in LA, we would make, of course, our yearly trek to Vegas. But one year I actually came 12 times. And it just so happened every couple of weeks, there would be somebody going like, it felt like every couple of weeks. Hey, my friend Rich Tellerico was directing Martin Short in a show in Vegas. He's like, buddy, I got to go out there anyways. You want to go? I'm like, sure. And then you get back and then, 2 weeks later or a month later, somebody would be like, hey, we're doing a Vegas trip. You want to go? And the Matt TV folks and whatnot. And I remember we're driving and we're in this, I think he had a Toyota RAV4. We're driving from, and we see that the world's largest thermometer, and it said like 112 or it was something crazy. And he looks at me, he's like, it can't be that hot, can it? We roll the windows down, and man, it was just like an oven. We're like, yeah, yes, it is. Roll it back up.
Like someone took a hair dryer on the most extreme hot setting and blew it at you, right?
Right in your face. Yeah, that was exactly it, with just air blowing right in your face, like from a hot air dryer. It could not have been described better, Ray. That's exactly the way it was.
The thing about Florida is, you get like the sweat layer. It's like your natural biological air conditioner kicks in, and you create like this sweat layer that just follows you throughout the day. So once you pop that sweat in Florida, your you're one with the humidity around you. It's like you just symbiotically blend into your surroundings. So you don't notice the humidity once you break that sweat layer.
I'm from Chicago originally, and of course, we go from one extreme, the extreme of winter, to summer. And I don't think it's not as hot as Florida, but the humidity can also get pretty. I run hot as it is. I apologize as soon as I get on somebody's set and the wardrobe, makeup starts working on me. I'm like, hey, give me some tissues, give me the little wax paper. I'll make sure I take care of myself. They go, oh, no, we'll take care of it. By the end, they're like, yeah, here you go. Because, it's the lights. They're like, take the whole thing. So I understand, but, and I'm in the cigar business. So I've been to Florida often and also like Cuba and whatnot. So that humidity, it can be draining for me. It's like, at least for the first few days, like, why? Oh my goodness. Like, I'm just I'm drained, but you're right. Once it builds up that layer, it's it's cooling. I guess. I guess that's the reason for our sweat to give off the heat.
Yeah, that reminds me of a story. One of the first movie sets I ever worked on. It was as a background extra. I was in Florida when I was in my early 20s. It was Ace Ventura: Pet Detective with Jim Carrey, and I'm sure that he didn't mean anything by it, but there's a scene with him in the pink tutu and the white undershirt, and they kept doing the scene over and over again. And between shots, his armpits would get very, very damp, and so there was a girl who was assigned to damp, dry him off between takes. And I think he, in a very Jim Carrey way, was like, "Where's my armpit girl? Where is she? Where's my?" And the poor girl was in tears, and I don't think he even realized it, but it was just one of those things, the movie magic and the dichotomy between comedy and real life and weather. It's just it's just an interesting moment in time that for some reason that story sticks in my mind.
And that is funny, and you're right. I think he probably saw the humor in it, and he's in no disparaging her, but it is funny to go, "Where's my armpit girl?" Because that's what she's doing. I mean, so now I don't feel so bad when people come and have to wipe my sweaty face. I mean, hey, whoops.
I just wanted to make you feel better. That was the whole purpose.
Thank you. You do seem like that kind of a person, Ray. So thank you very much for being that way. And so speaking of Florida, that's where you grew up. It's my understanding, you grew up in Florida, and that's where you found your love of acting. Was it at an early age? You want to touch on maybe growing up a little bit? Your parents, did they have an influence on you?
Yeah, I mean, all of that. I mean, I'm adopted, and I was the star of their lives. The thing about adoption is when someone adopts you, they really, really want you. It's not a it's not a matter of, oh well, we weren't planning you, but we're gonna raise you and be happy with this change in our lives. I mean, I think there's a syndrome that adoptees have where they feel rejected, from the relinquishment of their birth mother. But equal to that, I think I felt immensely loved because I was adopted by two people who really, really wanted me. And so I think there's a balancing issue that happens there, and I think somewhere in the psychology of that, I was like bolstered in my desire to enter into entertainment. I got applause when I was the class clown. I got some degree of notoriety, or attention when I did things that other people didn't have the confidence to do, and that just kind of like boosted me more and more forward into that kind of life. And I think music is what started it, playing the violin, then singing, and then that led to musical theater, which then led to theater and TV and film. So there was a progression in which I discovered things and kind of fell gradually in love with each of them.
Amazing. I love what you said that because you're right. I believe, adopted kids sometimes, it's like, why didn't somebody want me? But then the opposite is so true. And I hope that you keep spreading that message, and maybe you do, which is, it's quite the opposite. Like my parents didn't have a choice. They had to have me and keep me, I'm guessing. And whereas your parents sought you out and found you and raised you. So there's that much more love
Yeah.
there, I guess. But what an amazing way to look at it, and something that I had never really even thought of.
Now it can be oppressive too. I was an only child, and there were some things that went into them raising me. When you adopt a child, you're also always afraid. You're always looking over your shoulder that someone's going to take the kid back. If so, I couldn't get in trouble. I couldn't drive my bicycle off of the block. I couldn't go on school trips unless they chaperone. So there's an overprotective aspect of it too, because it's like, they wanted me so much, they also want to make sure they keep me, and so
Sure.
there's that kind of spills into the experience.
Wow. Yeah. Yes. I would imagine that they were somewhat overprotective and maybe overbearing. And you answered my next question, which was if you have siblings. Uh, and I know that you tracked down, was it your biological mother? And do you want to touch on that and talk about that
Sure.
experience?
Yeah, I mean, I was always curious growing up, and I always knew that I was adopted growing up. So, my parents didn't discourage me. Um, but Florida is a what do you call it? Like a sealed records, closed records state. So you can't just go knock on the door of public records and get your adoption papers. I basically hired a private investigation company in the early 2000s, and after a few years, I heard from them, and they had, through whatever methods they used, they had actually acquired the original record. So it named my birth mother and her siblings and some of her parental information, her parents, and her interview at the time of the relinquishment. So, I had all this information I could read first and research. And then I decided, well, rather than fly to Florida, which is, she actually is 50 miles away from where I actually was brought up and raised. So, who knows if I actually walked by her at some point in my life and didn't even realize who she was. But rather than fly out there and knock on her door first, I decided to go to her eldest sister, who lived here in California, in North Hollywood at the time. So I went to her house with yellow roses and knocked on her door and said, "We don't know each other, but I'm related to your sister, and I was born in such and such year." And then her eyes just opened up, and she realized, oh, she knew something had gone on with her sister back then, but didn't know what it was. Now all the pieces of the puzzle were clicking together for her. And of course, she welcomed me in, and we sat down and we talked for about 3 or 4 hours. And she kind of gave me the lay of the land, like here's where the family's from, here's what happened to them, here's where they are now. And she agreed to keep a secret our meeting until I actually went out and met my mother. So that was very kind of her. So so I did. About 3 months later, I flew out to Florida, did the same thing, met my birth mother. I think the biggest takeaway I had from the meeting is that she hugged me. She thanked me for finding her, because I think for a lot of birth mothers, it's true that, they have so many factors in their lives surrounding them, encouraging them to forget, encouraging them to move on with their lives and just turn the page. And I was the page that got turned. But in the back of her mind, there was guilt, there was sadness, there were feelings, there were unresolved. There was a need for closure. And I think that my knocking on her door gave her that. And we're friends today. I don't call her mom. I don't call any of my birth family by their relationship identity. They're just an expanded network of friends. But it's nice through that association to know more about at least the maternal side of my family, which I knew nothing of until that point.
Did you did you call her first, or did you show up at her door with flowers? Really?
Yeah. In fact, I said, you and I, we haven't seen each other since September 2nd, 1969. And her
And she,
jaw just dropped. And I was
wow,
prepared to catch her too, because I thought, well, maybe she might faint, but no, she was pretty. She took it in stride, um, but she just after that she said, "Can I hug you?" And that's when we hugged.
amazing, amazing. And you're a tall fella. What was she taller, or is she a smaller lady? And
No,
I don't know what I'm
she's
asking, but
she was average height. I think she's about 5'5", 5'6", 5'7", somewhere
okay.
in that area. I think my height may come from either my paternal side or a mixture of that and her father. Because one of the cool things, and I might over dramatize this a little bit, but one of the interesting things is that when I saw pictures of her father, he looked just like me at the same age. So I was knocking on her door at 32 years of age, and she had lost her father when he was 32. And here was a family of sisters who had very little to talk about and had not really spoken to one another in years. And because I was making the rounds, knocking on the doors, it brought them all back together, talking at least for a while about, hey, there's this new member of the family. So I thought that was kind of interesting. He passed away. He was a photographer for the Cleveland Pilots, and I guess his plane crashed, and they lost their father just in an instant, and they kind of, as older teen girls, they just kind of spread out and moved out on their own and didn't have a lot of contact. But once I knocked on my birth mother's door and had that meeting, I was actually singing with the Mantovani Orchestra that Christmas. And so that tour up and down the East Coast brought me through some very small towns in Ohio where it just so happened that 3 other aunts lived. So I used the tour to go through and actually meet more members of my maternal family. They threw me a big dinner, and it was very nice. Again, we're all friends now, but it's kind of interesting how those elements just kind of fell into place. Lots of coincidences. So maybe there's some meaning behind it, but that's for wiser men to figure out, I guess.
Wow. Well, what an amazing origin story. I mean, it's very, very moving and inspirational and whatnot. So you mentioned this orchestra, which then leads me to I know that you have an amazing voice, and I'm not going to ask you to sing or anything because if people want to hear some of your work, you've done some very interesting projects. So would you? First of all, what is this orchestra? It's a traveling orchestra, and what kind of music is?
Yeah, they'd been around for a number of years. Mantovani was he was a musical arranger. Probably your parents, my parents had a few of his albums in their under their Victrola. It was his claim to fame was it was like it was with heavy strings, kind of a continuum kind of sound where it was like hard to detect the bowing of the violins. It was just like a continual bowing. So very lush strings was kind of the signature. And it was kind of a pop orchestra thing. So he would do, arrangements of classical pieces. When we did this Christmas tour, it was mostly the orchestra playing their pieces, but maybe for 4 or 5 songs, there was an octet of singers, which I was a member of, that would sing Christmas music with the orchestra. And it was a bus and hotel kind of thing where different town every night, sleeping on the bus, checking in, checking out, checking in, checking out, just 3.5 weeks of continual moving up and down the coast. But I did that for a few years. Usually happened every couple of years we'd have a tour. And I think I did that for 3 tours. But it just so happened that They were going right through these little small towns in Ohio that I had relatives in. So it just magically all took place that one year where I met my four birth aunts and my birth mother all in one fell swoop.
Wow, amazing. And you never then connected with your with your biological father. Is that
Yeah, I haven't connected with him. I know of him. I know who he is. I've
okay?
connected with his daughters because, back in the day when I started searching, we didn't have these DNA tests. But in the last few years, I had submitted my genetic profile to 23andMe, and I guess in 2018 I got a hit, and it was names that I didn't recognize, names that I didn't associate with my maternal side. So I was like, oh, well, maybe this is the answer I've been looking for on the paternal. And sure enough, it was two half sisters who were born from my birth father and another woman. And out of respect for that other woman, he doesn't want to accept that I exist. So he was, I guess, engaged to her, the mother of my two half sisters, at the
Mhm.
time that he came to Florida and had a relationship with my birth mother. So, not wanting to blow up that situation, I don't identify who he is. But I am cordial with his daughters, and I never thought I would have two half sisters. Ironically, my birth mother, going back to her in Florida, after relinquishing me to adoption, she got married 6 months later and ended up adopting two children.
Wow.
So she
Int-
has two children that aren't genetically hers, but that she adopted after
sure.
relinquishing me. So that
Wow.
compounds a lot of the emotions, I think, too.
Sure. Sure it does. Sure does. But it sounds obviously, everything that happens brings us to where we are now, and I'm sure you've gone over that, and it sounds like they were very inspirational and brought you up to you know to let you do what you're doing now, which it looks like this is something that you love, and it sounds like they were maybe very encouraging when you were growing up and getting into, because it's not always easy to for parents to go like, yeah, of course you should be an actor, unless they're actors or know the life. I come from an immigrant father, and it's kind of like, even, and he passed away uh, maybe 2006, I think. So somewhere around there. So he started to see a little bit of the success, but not a lot of it. But I don't think even to the end he didn't really even get it. It was just like, oh, even when I went into business for myself, he wasn't very encouraging. So this is wonderful that they were able, that you had supportive parents that, I don't know, allowed you or encouraged you. Yeah, thank you guys, thank you. Encouraged you to do that.
Yeah, very much so. I think that it's interesting. I mean, yes, they loved me very much. They were very encouraging. But I also think, and I think a lot of kids identify with this, I think the smothering aspect, the overprotective aspect, is also what drove me to stay after school. It is also what drove me to kind of try to have a life outside my bedroom. Where because I knew if I went home, it would just be reading comic books and riding my bicycle down the street and coming back. It was I knew there was like a sheltered kind of environment waiting for me. So my ability to actually thrive or explore was really by staying at school after school and going into like a drama club or some kind of a rehearsal process for a show. So yes, they supported, but they also kind of like drove me into a direction that allowed me to become more independent. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes perfect sense. So this started in either like grade school or middle school, and then went on to high school as far as the performing. And when did you decide that, hey, this is what I want to do?
Um, say probably in high school. I think I probably had a few epiphanies. You know, I didn't go to a performing arts high school. I just went to a regular public school. But luckily, each year they had a school musical. So the first 2 years, I kind of introduced myself to musical theater and played supporting roles. And my final 2 years, I ended up getting lead roles. And so I think experiencing that responsibility, that work ethic, um, you know, getting applause, realizing that my hard work could result in an experience, and that's a shared experience, that you know other people rely on you, you rely on them, you know, just all of that at one time at that young of an age. I think it built a lot of character in me that I then carried forward and decided, yes, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to major in musical theater, this is what I want to do. So yeah, I would credit those years in high school.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you did then go to college in Florida, am I correct? And
Yeah,
then major.
I stayed in Boca Raton. I went to a JC in Palm Beach County for a little bit, but then I popped over to Florida Atlantic University. And while I was there learning, I also began working and getting my points towards my equity card and working in professional theater. So it was kind of like a learn to work and also, you know, learn while at work, you know, and then filter that back into my education as well. So it was a very nice kind of give and take relationship. I was very tired, but I did get through it, and um, you know, I got my equity card working dinner theater in Boca Raton. You know, working these long, like 4 to 5 month contracts, and um, from there I just carried that into working contract to contract at various theme parks and regional theaters. I eventually moved to Orlando actually for the final 5 years that I was in Florida, and then in 1999 I popped over to California, and I've been here ever since.
That's wonderful. We I think we showed up almost around the same time because I showed up in a little bit after you, maybe in like 2000 from Chicago. But without that extensive and beautiful, musical theater history and acting, I came to the world, thank you, the world of improv. And you know what? Let me thank everyone that popped in. Thank you guys for being here supporting. I know Deborah is a big person in. I don't know if you know Deborah Barsha, but if you don't, you guys should know each other. She's in New York, and she is in Tina Turner the musical, and I'm probably not saying that correctly, but she has a wonderful history in musical theater and in New York and whatnot. And our friend Rocksteady from Australia, and Woody and Goody. Thank you guys so much for being here and spending some of our Sunday, because I don't know even what day it is in or our Saturday. It's probably Sunday already in Australia. So thanks, Rock. Thanks for being here, and Deborah, and of course Woody and Goody. So did you go out there with a gig to LA, and did you do anything in Florida as far as for television or film, and then go like, yeah, okay, what was the impetus then to move to LA, or was that just like the natural progression?
You know, there are times in your life where you just coast and glide, and I was at a point in '99 where I was kind of just gliding, and I was married at the time, and my ex-wife, then wife, was working at Walt Disney World, and they promoted her to a job at Walt Disneyland. So the relocation package just picked us up and moved us out to California. And I was just of the opinion that I was going to be supportive, and I would reinvent myself. I'd figure it out once I got here. And that was a little bit pie in the sky, because I got here and none of my network was here. I didn't have that musical theater, connection out here. And what I could see of the theater scene out here was it was mostly older celebrities from TV and film that were being asked to do a show, and that was mainly the kind of theater scene that I saw, at least from the surface. when I first arrived. I'm like, well, there's nothing there for me right now. So I had to start doing the background work and just work my way into TV and film. And, I could, because I was equity already, I could have joined SAG right away, sister union rule. But I decided to wait because we were still using Thomas guides back then. And I didn't know California. And if I'm being told to be in, Sherman Oaks at 5 a.m. on Chelsea Circle, there's 15 Chelsea circles in my spiral bound Thomas guide, So I'm like, well, I'm going to stay non-union, make my $57 a day. And that way, if I screw up and I go to the wrong Chelsea circle, it's not going to follow me. It's not part of my professional life. So I did about 6 or 7 months paying my dues until I kind of got the feeling that I kind of knew where I was going, and then I joined the union. And I made some inroads. I did a gig on Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I thought things were going to take off. And unfortunately, I think when you think things are going to take off, they don't. And so I kind of went back into survival jobs for a while and flip-flopped for a few years. So from 2005 through about 2007 or 8, I was doing survival jobs, and then I kind of got into the backside of the arts. So I worked in marketing for the Laguna Playhouse out here, and then I did some work as a general manager for Long Beach Opera, so I could see more of the business side. And then that kind of inspired me to go out on my own and start my own theater company, the Relevant Stage, which ran in the San Pedro area from about 2008 through about 2011. And then I moved to Long Beach and started another company with a partner there called Art and Relation, which ran up until just before the pandemic. And it was in about 2018 that I decided, well, I'm a little tired of producing and directing, and I think I'm going to go back to seeing what I can do as a performer. And I started booking a lot of commercials and steadily working in TV and film throughout the pandemic, actually, which a lot of my friends were not doing. And for some reason I was. And the self-tape thing I found very invigorating because I could audition, for several things in a day as opposed to just picking one thing to drive to, and spend my day waiting to audition. So I kind of thrived through the pandemic, and it's gotten me to the point now where I feel like I've got a pipeline, I've got some momentum, and I'm just trying to keep building on that. So that's my long answer to your question about how I moved to California.
It's a perfect answer. That's wonderful. I mean that's part of your journey, and I remember the days of the Thomas. Back in my day, we needed a Thomas guide. Yeah, where same thing. I remember getting lost. We went up to Agora Hills to watch a band play who may have been Styx, I think.
All right.
But it was yes, and I'm almost sure it must have been Styx, and it was like almost like dinner theater. It was at the Canyon Club in Agora Hills. So I think we left like 3 hours early because it still took us a while to get there, but we were there way too early. And it was just funny to watch them performing, and everyone's kind of sitting dinner theater style, and it was like watching these old rock stars go. But it was an amazing show. We had a great show, but we were always getting lost. I remember once we were on the 101, and we took a wrong turn somewhere, and we were still on the 101, but it wasn't where we weren't in Hollywood. It was just awful, and of course the driving around for auditions and the parking and the meters and the gas and everything. The pandemic is the reason I really got back into acting. My businesses were closed in Vegas for 3-4 months, and then auditioning like this. You could be anywhere. So even a few months ago, I asked my agent, I'm like, well, do I need to move to LA? They're like, no, not yet. Everything is still this, when we need you, when you book something, you come to LA. So it's been wonderful.
It's very liberating. The thing with self-tapes now, though, is that I think casting directors and producers have gotten less patient and more demanding. They want 30 seconds of this. They want a full view of that. They want you, against a blank backdrop, and you have to have good lighting, and you have to have your costume on, and it's like they want all these things that you might not have given them had you just driven there and walked in for a taping. So it puts a little more onus on the actor to keep up with the Joneses as well, because the actor who's submitting for the same role that's competing with you might have a nicer backdrop, or they might have a better 4K camera, or they might have the beautiful costuming in their closet for the role, that some obscure role. So it puts more pressure on us, I think, now that we've gotten used to self-taping, to up the quality, up the ante.
That is, it's so true, because, and you're right. It's almost, I hope no casting director hears this, but they're almost hypocritical, because when we go into their office, there's shit in the back wall, there's posters, you're in a room, there's noise maybe behind the camera. And we're, and we did it, and they were fine, but now they're like, make sure blank back wall. They've got all these requirements, and now you have to be a director, a technical person, a editor, everything. So
Yeah.
it's not easier.
And it wouldn't be so bad if they were all uniform, but every casting director, every producer has their own nuances, their own way of doing it, and then you have to upload these things. And if your Wi-Fi is misbehaving, or you have a big file because they say they want you to do 4 takes of it, and it's a 3-minute scene, and now you have a 12-minute video with a 1-minute slate. You've got this 13-minute monstrosity that you're trying to upload. It takes 3 hours to upload it. It's almost to the point where we're back to driving on the 101 and parking and going in and doing 1 audition a day as opposed to 7. So hopefully there'll be some balancing out as we move forward. But I don't adhere to all the rules. Sometimes I just say, well, if you want this by, and also the deadline. Sometimes it's like same day they want this self-tape in by. So it's like, well, I rarely got same day auditions. I at least could calendar it 3 or 4 days in advance. But they want you to drop everything, and so sometimes I just I cut corners, and you want it in. This is what I'm going to give you. Here, I'm in my car. Here's the audition. Here, I'm reading the sides. And it's better to do that, I guess, than not than to miss it completely. So, and I booked jobs from that. They'll say, "Oh yeah, we saw exactly what we needed to see." I'm like, "Well, okay, good, thanks."
And that's what it should be about. It should be about the work, not if you're lit properly or if there's a poster in the background. It should absolutely 100% be about the work. And it can be deceiving because, if I've got the ability to do this, 10 times and then pick and choose the best one, am I able to deliver that when I get to set? I mean, I'll bet that they've hired people that were amazing on tape, and then all of a sudden they get on set and they can't carry their weight. Whereas when you're in the audition live, you can't hide that. They're like, okay, yeah, they brought it and they did great. Or, no, can you imagine if we have this person on set? No, thanks. So it's
point.
Yeah, and so I think there's more competition because everyone can do it until I'm happy. Then I'm not going to send it. So
I think it's become a little more of a cattle call now too. It's like everyone send us a self tape in. It's like rather than okay, we only want these 7 people to send us a self tape because we've ruled out the other 93 people. But now it's like 100 people. So it's like okay, and then. What do they only watch the first 5 and they find the one they want? They don't watch the other 95 because they got their tapes in a day later, So
right.
It's a numbers game still.
That's it. I mean, I feel like, we can all do the job, but it always comes down to what are they looking for? So, but I love that you worked on Curb. It's one of my favorite shows. When I read into Jeff Garlin before Curb came out, so it must have been I must have gone back to Chicago, and we were at the Second City, and I was in the cigar business. So I remember I gave him a few cigars, and we were just smoking. And he was like, "Hey, I'm going to bring you in on. I got this show that we're doing. It's an improv show." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I remember I sent him my headshots. And I think every time I see him, I'm like, "You still got my headshot?" And he goes, "Yeah, I still got it."
Got it. Yeah. It's right here. It's in the bathroom. I look at it every day.
I'm going to send him some more. But so I've not done Curb, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the show's over, and then all of a sudden, what? It's back again? But that's wonderful. I saw the old clip of you on Curb, and fantastic, man, and so appropriate being in theater and then playing a stage manager.
Yeah, I was booked on that actually as a featured extra, and one of the ADs, second AD, came up to me and said, "We heard that you're actually were a stage manager." I'm like, "Yes, yes, I am. Yes, I have worked as a stage manager." And he said, "Well, we have someone that wants to meet you and talk to you about something we're thinking about for the show." I'm like, okay. So he takes me, and then we go through backstage area. Then I get to a trailer, knocks on the door. Larry David pops his head out of his trailer and says, "So I hear you're a stage manager." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah. Okay. Looks good to me. Bring him on." And so, so I shook his hand, and that was that. They signed me to like 3 or 4 episodes, but really only that one scene that is one you probably saw is the one that actually made it. Because I think with a show like that, it they know where they're going, but it's not scripted. And I think the editor writes the show once they get all the pieces together. So fortunately, that piece that I was in made it in, and other pieces I was in didn't. But yeah, I was in episodes with David Schwimmer that I've never appear in. I got to meet Mel Brooks and had a scene with him. Never appeared. But the premise was they had me acting as the stage manager for the producers, which was the show within the show for that season, because they were in rehearsal to do the producers. So yeah, it was nice to have a steady gig, and I still got paid for it, and I still get the residuals, but only one really good scene to show for it. But I thought at that point, with all that work, and of course, before something comes out, you're thinking, "Oh my God, I'm all over this thing. When it comes out, people are going to recognize me from the street, And then only that one scene comes out. So that's why I said I thought things were going to take off, and they didn't, because I think had I been in more footage, maybe I would have had more momentum and more to build on. But it was what it was, and it was great to have that experience.
And were your lines improvised? Pretty much everything that you did, where like it's my understanding. Yeah, they give you a script with, this is what your thing is. Here's Larry's thing, but now, just go ahead and improvise it.
Yeah, the only scripted line I had was, "Okay, everybody, we're back. Let's take it from the top." And then Larry David improvised to me, "Okay," now I say, and then the scripted line is, "Larry, you start from stage left," and then he improvised, "Oh, is that my left or the audience left or what left?" And then I just improvised back, "It's your left right now." And so that was the big piece that got kept in, that people do sometimes still recognize me for. But that was it was a hybrid. Some of it was outlined and scripted, and some of it was just reacting to what you hear, improvising.
Wonderful. And then
saying yes.
Yes, and it's all about yes and.
Yes and.
It's our improv background. I studied in Chicago at Second City and Improv Olympic, and I just interviewed Susan Messing, who is an improv teacher from Chicago, and she was my level 3 teacher, I think, back when I studied there back in the 1900s, and we had a great talk and chat. And it's about you agree and you keep going and you build these wonderful scenes. And you're 100% right. The show's written by the editor. and and I watched an interview, and that's exactly what was discussed. The same editor used to do other shows where it's basically not improvised, and here's what we're doing. They know the lines, and now you just edit it and put it together. He goes, Curb was way different. It was about, he was basically writing that story, and then Larry would have final approval, but you write the story, and so who knows where your parts when they end up on the cutting room floor. But,
yeah, it'd be nice
but
to
you're
have
on
a
it.
DVD extra somewhere. But yeah, it's good. It's a moment in history. But yeah, it was nice to do.
Wonderful.
And so,
yeah.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, from there, that's what led to me going back to doing the survival jobs, and then eventually working my way into musical theater again, producing, and then finally back into pushing myself out there, getting a good manager, getting an agent, and just plowing ahead. The idea of taking baby steps every day, just doing incremental things to just push things forward, knowing that every day I'm doing something. And it just may be an iron in the fire that I forget about and that pays off 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years down the road, but always doing a little something to push things forward.
I love it. That's such great advice and words to live by. And I've seen also some of your work in commercials. Yeah. A round of applause, everyone. And thank you guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for spending part of your Saturday with us. My guest, if you're just joining us or if you came in a little bit late, my guest is Ray Buffer, who's an actor, a singer, and what was the other thing that I put on your?
Found my light.
You found your light.
It's very spooky light now. I don't know. Where did you leave off?
Speaking of spooky, you've played Frankenstein, a very emotional. Is the right word emotional? A very yeah. What was that for? It was a commercial, I take it, or
I've done. There are 2 roles that I seem to get booked on, and with for different purposes, and that's Frankenstein and Santa Claus. So I get one of these days I'll do a Franken-Claus.
Yes. Yeah, you have.
Or a Santa Stein. I'm not sure. Yeah, but yeah, Frankenstein. I did a California Walnuts campaign where I was like a chef creating these scientifically construed concoctions that are the antithesis of cooking with natural walnuts, which was the idea. You have a real cook cooking with walnuts, and you have Frankenstein's creature cooking with chemicals. So they wanted to show the comparison of the two, having a cook-off. That was a nice little comedic thing I got to do. I think that's what you mean by he was emotional. There's a nice clip out there that can be watched. But I also did a portraiture doing the old Universal Studios Frankenstein makeup for an exhibit that should be coming out in a few months. And the artist Anastasia, she picked emotions and then uses like the Mummy and Dracula and all of the Universal monsters to represent these different emotions. So like Dracula represents gluttony, Frankenstein's creature represents depression. So we did like a sitting after 3 or 4 hours of prosthetic makeup to do that. And I've also produced Frankenstein, a new musical, on a couple occasions, both in Long Beach and in Hollywood. And I played the creature in those, and that's a serious singing Frankenstein, but beautiful, lush music. I actually discovered it from a CD I bought at Barnes & Noble. It was an off-Broadway version of Frankenstein that existed and came out the same year that Young Frankenstein was on Broadway. So it kind of got overshadowed because of that, I think. But it's beautiful. It's a beautiful show. And actually, a friend of mine may also be producing it as a concert version later this year, and so I might reprise the creature role in concert version for that. But there's not a ton of makeup for that version. But for some reason, yeah, I get seen as that creature, which is fine. And then I do Santa. I do a lot of Santa work.
Amazing, amazing. And you also do some singing eyebrow work.
I do. I just got a nice juicy check for like a reissue for that because they filmed the PSA, the Red Cross, back in 2019, and then it was to promote a campaign that couldn't take place because we were in lockdown. So they just had to stick it on the shelf. And now 2 years later, they decided, okay, now we're going to do the campaign, and so they pay you the money all over again, but you don't have to go refilm it. So that was nice. But yeah, I was singing eyebrow. The idea premise is the guy is plucking his eyebrows, and he could be volunteering his time installing smoke alarms in people's homes, but you know how preoccupied we are with all the minutia in our lives, and so singing eyebrows basically telling him, hey, I'm going to grow back and be the same eyebrow you had. So, you know, encouraging him to go out and install some free smoke alarms.
Amazing.
So, yeah, that was a fun game. Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Where can people find you if you'd like to share that information, if they want to follow you on social media, or I know that your website is raybuffer.com. Find your light. Find your light. There it is.
I'm finding you right. They can find me right here. Yeah, just Google Ray Buffer. You can also go to raybuffer.com. I'm on Instagram as the real Ray Buffer because there are a couple of not real ones pop up from time to time. I don't know. I don't think I've become that famous that anyone needs to create fake accounts, but for some reason I'm seeing them. So I am the real Ray Buffer. And yeah, IMDb or Facebook. Just type my name in the Google machine and magical things will happen.
Amazing. So that is wonderful. Anything that you'd like to promote? Is there something that you can talk about that you'd like some kind of call to action, if you will, that you're looking for people to support you with?
Yeah, I mean, I have a few gigs on the horizon. I'll be playing Judas in Godspell in a production for a friend for one weekend only in Buena Park, California, sometime in August. So I'll be looking forward to doing that because it's a role I haven't done before, and it's been probably 4 years now since I've actually done some stage work. So it'll be nice to wet the whistle again. Next week, I'm going back to Melt Pictures to shoot a video game character named Rusty in State of Survival. We shot some footage before, but it couldn't be used, and so now they've asked me back, and I get to put on my biker gear and get a little fake beard going on and be all macho. So that'll be fun. Other than that, I attended a screening today for a student filmmaker at USC. Where I did a voiceover for an animated bear, and I got to see some excellent filmmakers there at USC. Just really some remarkable work. So I would just leave you with the idea that, I'm typecast a lot as a big guy, but when I can take different kind of roles, even if it's by doing student films, I will do them because it gives me diversity. It also gives me exposure to the filmmakers of tomorrow, and
sure.
And along those lines of baby steps, those are irons in the fire that might pay off a couple years from now. If I get a phone call saying, "Hey, you did my student film, and now I'm a big budget director, and I've got a role for you." Never know.
That is an amazing and wonderful way to look at it because that is true, and they can use the help. If it's something that they're just starting out their careers. But you're right. I mean, these are the future filmmakers, producers, directors of the future. So I think planting the seeds now, it's the right thing to do, and hopefully then you get to work with them. And I hope that we get to work together someday because you are fascinating. You have such great range. Because I've seen you without your beard, I've seen you with your beard. You make a great cowboy. Thank you. Yeah, let's give it up for Ray Buffer.
Yeah.
For
So
the
much
very
rain.
shy Ray
Look, I'm
Buffer.
completely different now. Yeah. Yeah, well,
Oh,
you need to come out to LA. So when you do, I'll drive you down the 101 and drop you off somewhere.
perfect, perfect. I hope that maybe we can share a beer. I saw some of you do. What do you do? Hot tub beer time or beer?
I have a little hashtag. There's no real purpose behind it. No one sponsors me per se yet, beer companies. But yeah, I do like a hashtag raise hot tub beers. So the hot tub is my office. I do all my casting submissions from my phone while I'm in the hot tub, and I will enjoy a different beer every day as much as I can, and throw a shout out to that brand and take a picture of myself enjoying it.
You're onto something there. You have something there. So that is such a great idea, and I hope that somebody picks up on you and says like, hey, we need this guy to be one of our brand ambassadors.
Maybe I should do a hot tub podcast.
I think you should. I mean, I would consider doing it here on Fireside. I could join you. I mean, I have a community hot tub. I'm in a condo, so I could I don't know, waterproof my phone and join you in some kind of hot tub conversations. I'm even wearing a cigar shirt. I figured you're from Florida.
Wow.
So there might be has a little cigar pocket on the side. So maybe we can have a cigar, and I don't know if you smoke or not, but we can have a cigar, share a cigar and some beer. What's your favorite? Do you have a favorite beer, or would you rather not?
It's going to be sad for me to say, but I actually enjoy Miller. There's an
I saw that.
Miller. Yeah, go ahead.
I agree. I mean, that's what really got me fascinated, because I saw one that said Miller High Life, which is the champagne of beers.
Yes. I actually it was cheap, and it has a nice peppery aftertaste that I can't find anywhere else in any other beer. And I actually went to an Oktoberfest with a friend in my early 20s and had a beer there that I just really enjoyed, and I never could place what it was. And I've been tasting all these beers ever since. And I go and have a run-of-the-mill Miller, and I'm like, there it is. There's that. It was a Miller draft I must have had at Oktoberfest. And that's what I've been tasting ever since, or seeking. Isn't that weird?
Is there a Miller beer and then a Miller High Life, or is
they all share that same aftertaste, whatever it is. I don't know enough about beer making to say what causes the taste, but whether it's Miller, Miller Lite, Miller Genuine Draft, Miller High Life, Miller anything, all of the Millers have this thing at the very end that no other beer that I found. Maybe Coors almost had it once, but really I haven't really found it in any other beer. I don't know what it is. It could just be some weird thing that only I taste, that is some culmination of carbonation and my tongue. I have no idea what it is. It could be unique to me, but maybe someone who's watching this and now or in the future will be able to tell us what that taste is.
You know what? That should be our mission. I think we'll need to do some hot tub talks and then try to get to the bottom of this mystery, because now I'm salivating. I'm like, you know what? I could go for a beer so.
Well, yeah, let's plan a sequel, and we'll do the hot tub. I smoked a cigar a few times. I'm not a big cigar person, but I would go out and buy one just for you. See me smoke it.
You won't have to. I could always send you some Vato cigars, because I make my own cigar. I have my own cigar brand, so we could. But yeah, you teach me a little bit about beer, and I'll teach you a little bit about cigars, and we'll have some great conversations. But Ray, if you have any final thoughts or final words, I'd love to hear them. But I really want to thank you for taking time from your schedule. My goodness, you pulled over in your car to do this. So thank you. And we'd do a part 2 if you'd like, and we can keep people abreast. Thank you, guys. Yeah, a round of applause for Ray. Thank you, guys, and for yourselves for being here. Rocksteady, Kurt, Woody, Goody, Deborah Barsha, whom I really think you should connect with. She is a musical theater goddess in New York, and I think you guys would probably have a lot to talk about. And that's a great thing about this platform, Fireside. The community is wonderful. It's somewhat curated, so it's not just anyone. It's not just open to anyone. And content creators. I would hope that you'd apply to be a content creator, because you could do your show from here if it's once a week, once a month, whatever it is, Ray. I think you'd make a great addition to this community.
Well, I mean, no one's ever asked me to consider doing that before, so I think you've lit a fire. So I will look into it.
I've lit a fire on Fireside. I think that's appropriate. So, Ray, any final thoughts? Any final words? And I know that people can find you at raybuffer.com, and of course, just Google Ray Buffer if you want to connect with him and follow him on social media. And I'm at Paul Vato, paulvato.com or vato.tv, or y.at/theaterface film camera smirk crying laughing emoji, which that sounds ridiculous now that I said it. It's better just go vato.tv. So that's why that thing's probably not going to work.
Yeah, I don't speak emoji yet.
But if you type those,
it's really hieroglyphics, right? We're just basically digressing to Egyptian times now with emojis.
That is 100% right. We've gone back to where we started. We've gotten rid of the alphabet, and now it's like you can find me at these emojis. You type those in, and there's paulvato.com. So yes, I'm sorry to interrupt, Ray. Any final words or thoughts? And if not, then thank you so much for being here.
No, just thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to get to know you, and I look forward to getting to know you better.
Thank you. And likewise, and folks, thank you guys. How about a round of applause for Mr. Ray Buffer? Thank you so much for being here. And we look forward to again. Find your light, Ray. Find your light.
There it is.
I'm going to invite the
now I'm blinded. You can't look right into the sun. Bad. Thank you, Paul.
Ray, you're very welcome.
Holding up the bottle. Look a little closer, cigar and Moscato. An actor in improv coming from Chicago. Outdoor, make way for Paul Vato.